Welcome to Inside the Channel, driving the next phase of cybersecurity as a service with Sophos, brought to you by Sophos, a podcast where we discuss trends in the channel today. I'm your host, Kenna Johnson from the Channel Company. My guests are Scott Barlow and Dave Mareels from Sophos. We will talk about the cyber threat landscape and opportunities for MSPs with Sophos MDR. Welcome, Scott and Dave.
Thanks, Kenna. Hi, good to be here.
Scott, we'll start with you. The threat landscape is constantly evolving. What are some of the biggest cybersecurity challenges for partners and customers right now?
The threat landscape continues to grow in complexity and volume, and cyber attacks are not slowing down, as evidenced through the Sophos Threat Ops or XOps processes in Sophos Incident Responders and all the stuff that they're actually remediating. I think some of the top challenges for MSPs are a lot of the cybersecurity tools are just overwhelmingly costly and complex and really, really difficult to manage if you as a partner, channel partner, or an MSP are actually going to be doing it yourself. Another top challenge that we see is obviously the threats accelerating in both volume and sophistication. And lastly, a lot of the channel partners and MSPs that are out there today are having a really, really difficult time finding the good, talented, experienced security analysts to actually go out and know how to do the incident response and the full remediation from an attack. And there's a lot of statistics that we can actually provide. But one of the statistics that I often talk to MSPs about is that the average organization spends over $7,500 per year per employee. And that's over $600 per user per month. And so when you look at it from that perspective, a lot of the partners that are out there are absolutely not capitalizing on the opportunity and selling cybersecurity as a service to their end customers. So, we often look at the threat landscape. It is getting more complex, but there's a lot of challenges that the MSPs and channel partners are facing out there today.
Scott, how can partners keep up with these threats and make sure their customers are protected?
I think partners really need to ensure that they're working with a vendor that has the breadth and scale to see real-time threats, but also to integrate those threats into the protection, including detailed telemetry from third-party vendors that are out there, and ensure that they're leveraging the best practices to stay protected, including the ongoing account health checks. Because oftentimes you might have an analyst that logs in, maybe changes a few settings, and then that opens up, some door that something nefarious or somebody nefarious has access to. I also think, we see the ransomware and other attacks are just remaining persistent. And these organizations of all sizes and all sectors are impacted, even larger organizations that have their own internal security teams. And a lot of the channel partners and MSPs that are out there today have the ability now to do co-managed IT or co-managed services where you might provide the second or third shift, nights and weekends, holidays, stuff like that to help augment a lot of these services that, the internal organization are providing themselves. Global cybersecurity workforce shortages, further complicate these challenges for the channel partners in general. And that increases the risk and exposure to potential attacks, but those really without the necessary on-demand resources to throw at, a particular problem.
Dave, we'll go to you for this one. What is managed detection and response? How does it work? And how can it help partners deliver superior security outcomes?
Managed detection and response, also known as MDR, is a fully managed service delivered by an expert team that provides 24/7, 365 threat hunting, as well as the name suggests, detection and response. That's very much the definition, but how I like to think of it is a dedicated set of resources, highly skilled group of individuals. And internally here at Sophos, we have 250 of those resources. And they range from tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 analysts. And those are the people that are actually looking at the alerts from, as Scott mentioned, all the third-party telemetry and all the alerts from our own products. The plethora of alerts that are coming in, and they call it alert fatigue. So all of those alerts coming in, that's very much taken care of by our sort of a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 analysts. But we also have threat hunters and detection engineers and people that are writing detection rules and security analytics. and people that are writing automation playbooks, engineers that are security automation engineers. And this group of individuals, for all our customers and partners, I like to think of it as they become part of the team. Right? They are the ultimate security team extension. And that's how I like to think about MDR. And it's not just any team. So this is a huge service. We have over 17,000 companies, so 17,000 organizations worldwide facing the challenges that Scott just mentioned that are relying on us and partnering us to deliver that team and that SOC extension to protect them from the threat landscaping. How does it work? Well, I've sort of said there's 250-person team and growing. They're working 24/7 on behalf of our customers. And it really falls into two brackets. It's looking at those alerts from the customer's tool set. So whether that be a Palo Alto alert firing or a Mimecast alert or Sophos email alert coming at you, they're picking up those alerts and investigating and either confirming that nothing nefarious has taken place or escalating to an incident and actually doing that further investigation and kicking into an incident response. That's very much what we call, alert-based or detection-based. Then there's another part of the service which is not spoken often enough about, which is sort of the lead-less alerting and detection service, which is we don't wait for an alert to fire. We don't need to wait for our endpoint product to tell you there's something malicious taking place. We're out there looking at signals from all over the industry. It could be Reddit feeds, it could be just industry papers, it could be peers about a potential vulnerability that's being exploited. That is not 0 day by definition. There's not an alert that's popping up and saying, hey, there's a 0 day here. So we have the leadless function, which is we're not waiting for that detection to fire for our threat hunters to be investigating those things. And really that's sort of the how it works. All that group of individuals working together to be doing detection and response, waiting for those alerts and responding, but also beyond that, protect our customers against those 0 days, not waiting for an alert to fire and doing hypothesis-driven threat hunting, which is a really, really value add for our customers and partners. And how can it help? Well, I think hopefully that's obvious. You leverage that team of experts and leveraging that 250 and growing team, right? Our partners had a tremendous opportunity to grow their business, right? And basically what that means is they can expand their managed security service offering without a significant upfront investment. So if you didn't have us, you would have to develop proprietary technology and processes. You would have to attract and train and retain all these specialized expertise in-house, which is a very tall order.
Scott, how is Sophos MDR different from other MDR offerings out there?
It's different in a lot of ways. As David mentioned, you have the ability to ingest third-party telemetry. That's really the first and, major differentiation. But it's also a difference between, do you want hands-on keyboard or do you want eyes on glass? The hands-on keyboard is actually going to help you as a partner. We can either notify you, we can collaborate with you, or you can authorize us to go in and put hands-on keyboard, do the remediation, work with you very closely to ensure that everything is cleaned up, the threat is neutralized. Others will be eyes on glass. They'll let the partner know, hey, there's something going on, go and do the remediation. And I think from a partner standpoint, you need to make sure that you are aware of exactly what you need, right? If you have the capability to go out and do the remediation on your own without any assistance, that's fantastic. But I think when you are really in the mud, when you're doing this remediation and active threat hunt, you want a second set of eyes. You want experts. You want these 500 SOC analysts around the world to have your back. Two other, differentiations. The first is breach warranty protection. If anybody ever gets breached, we cover up to $1,000 per machine, up to $1 million. And I think that is quite significant. And then the ability to ingest all of the telemetry into our data lake. I've seen some of these threats. I've seen some of the threat hunts. They don't let me view it anymore because I get so excited and I talk about it and I'm on stage, but there's so much, detail. And, you might have an open relay that we identify through a third-party email vendor that we can then go in and have a more comprehensive view of what the network and what the endpoint looks like, and then go and do that remediation. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. The differentiation, I think, is this. It comes about from the benefits we get from having such a large customer base. 17,000 customers. You can imagine the size and scale, the diversity of data that's coming into our SOC. Now, that's not enough. Just having lots of data is not the value prop. The value prop is, what do we do with that data in the back end? And we have, and Scott mentioned this virtuous cycle, we call it the XOps. You could have a really cool name for this sort of team, right? We're seeing all this data flow into our SOC, and we're creating that data. We're cleaning that data. We're normalizing that data. We're sharing that internally to enhance our protection and detection capability further. So to bring that alive, we could see an alert trigger from a third-party email security tool. We can get a domain in there, and our analysts will look at that domain and say, that looks a bit odd. That looks, that's a phishing domain. Would send it over to our threat intelligence team. They would verify that indeed that's a newly spun up domain. That is absolutely a domain that's doing nefarious purposes. And we're going to mark that as phishing and then deploy that intelligence within our entire portfolio of products. So our threat intel feeds would be updated thanks to us taking in data from third-party telemetry from an MDR customer. But the value add is for every customer and partner that is leveraging the Sophos portfolio and their threat intelligence feed. And I don't think there's many vendors in the world that can say, by taking all your security telemetry, we in turn enhance and harden our own security stack.
Dave, we'll go to you for the next one. Aren't EDR or XDR offerings enough? Why are so many layers needed?
It's a common misconception, I think, with lots of partners and customers. They think you deploy your technology, protection's there, I can walk away and my hands are clean. Unfortunately, it's not that simple and straightforward. You need a human looking at these things. And the best stat I have is when we look at our rapid response engagements, they're basically the fire brigade that comes in when there's a real P1 and a really significant incident. When there is that P1 incident for our customers and we get deployed to clean it up and remediate, 80% of the time, there are leading detections on some sort of console, whether that be our own product or someone else's product. So 80% of the time, the technology was there. The technology even went further. The technology just wasn't there. The technology detected it. And still we had a P1. And I think that just tells you the scale of the challenge here. We have a small stretch group of resources logging into 10 separate screens, right? And the complete alert fatigue, the lack of expertise that you have with knowing exactly what each detection means. Remember, every product is essentially a new language to interpret. And so it's a massive burden. We have a already stretched team. We have a huge amount of threats in terms of sophistication and volume increasing. So you have an attacker onslaught, and the defensive position of those internal teams is super stretched. And so the technology, right, detects things, but you need that human layer, that expertise to take those signals, interpret them, do further investigation to give you just that extra layer of defense to really protect you.
Scott, what advice would you give partners who are trying to determine whether they should team up with a vendor to provide managed security services or do it themselves?
The first thing I would say is that we're here to help. I was talking to a partner last week, and they actually transitioned to be an MSSP, and they spent 2 years and over $2 million trying to put up a SOC. And then in the end, they actually just decided to outsource it to Sophos. And I think Sophos MDR just provides a tremendous opportunity for partners to start or even expand their MSP services without, risky or extensive investments in developing proprietary or hybrid tools or expertise that is hard to attract, train, retain, as David mentioned earlier. Even the partners that we talked about that have this in-house capability find that Sophos actually can provide that, nights, weekends, holiday type, overflow if needed. And so with Sophos MDR, channel partners really can increase their breadth of security offerings, including the ability to sell mobile security and email and server, even cloud security, ZTNA. All of that is baked into the centralized dashboard that we call Sophos Central and integrated into MDR. And we enable them to preserve really best-in-class margins and exceed customer expectations.
Scott, how should partners go about choosing the right vendor and offering?
Well, I always say that channel partners should invest in delivering industry-best, fully managed security services that are really simple to manage and really backed by a leading vendor. And when they look at the tools that are out there, I really think there's 3 compatibility tests that they need to ask themselves. The first is it compatible with your environment? Does it support the tools that you use in your environment? Does it ingest those third-party vendors and telemetry from those vendors that you use? The second is it compatible with your needs? Do you need full-scale incident response or assistance making more accurate decisions? And lastly, is it compatible with your business? This is really where you have, the deep experience actively hunting threats, targeting organizations, in your customers' industries? It's moving obviously down market to the SMB, but does it also integrate with the vendors that you use for billing and for alerting and for management and so forth? So when you look at the right MDR vendor, you want to make sure that you are delivering superior cybersecurity outcomes. That's really the key focus at the end of the day.
And finally, Scott, where can we learn more?
If you want to learn more, if you have any questions about anything that we talked about, I am always available. My email address is scott.barlow@sophos.com. You can also visit sophos.com/MSP to learn more information about our MSP Connect Flex program. And, visit our website. There's a ton of resources and information on our website. And I'm sure David would absolutely love to, hear from you as well. His email address is david.mareels@sophos.com.
That concludes Inside the Channel, driving the next phase of cybersecurity as a service with Sophos. Brought to you by Sophos. I'm your host, Kenna Johnson. See you next time.